She said, "Please, just make it quick." Yet something in her eyes made him pause. A single light above flickered now and then, casting weak shadows that moved slowly, almost like they were breathing. The air smelled of damp concrete and something metallic, though he tried not to think too hard about it. He had been in places like this before, too many times. She sat on a simple chair in the middle of the room. Her hands were tied, but not tightly enough to hurt. Whoever had brought her here had not been cruel, just careless and rushed. Her posture was straight, even though she was clearly exhausted. Strands of her hair had fallen loose around her face, and there were marks on her skin that showed she had not been treated gently before arriving here. Still, she did not cry. She did not shout. She did not beg. That alone was unusual. He checked his watch more out of habit than need. Time mattered to him. It always had. He liked things done quickly, cleanly, without delays. That was how he survived for so long. Feelings slowed people down. Thinking too much caused mistakes. He had learned that lesson the hard way. She looked up at him then, finally meeting his eyes. Her voice was low, almost steady when she spoke. "Please," she said softly, "just make it quick." The words landed heavier than he expected. He had heard them before, spoken in fear, in panic, in desperation. Usually they were followed by tears or promises or useless bargaining. But this time it was different. There was no shaking in her voice, no wild hope. Just a calm request, like someone asking for the end of a long, painful day. He didn't respond right away. Silence filled the space between them. The light flickered again, and for a moment her face was half in shadow. He took a step closer, telling himself he was just doing his job, nothing more, nothing less. This was supposed to be simple, yet something held him back. He noticed her eyes. They weren't wide with fear. They weren't searching the room for an escape. Instead, they looked tired. Deeply tired, as if she had already accepted whatever was coming and had made peace with it long before he arrived. That look unsettled him. He had trained himself not to notice details like that, not to care. People were tasks, not stories. Faces faded quickly once the job was done. That was how he slept at night. That was how he survived. But standing there under the weak light, he found himself noticing things he usually ignored. Her shoes were worn, the soles thin from too much walking. Not the kind worn by someone who lived comfortably. Her jacket was cheap and a little too big, probably bought second-hand. One sleeve had a small tear near the wrist, carefully stitched up by hand. Someone who fixed their own clothes. Someone who didn't have much. He wondered how she ended up here. The thought surprised him. He didn't usually wonder. Curiosity was dangerous in his line of work. It made things personal, and personal things stayed with you. She shifted slightly in the chair, the rope making a quiet sound. She noticed his hesitation. Anyone would. Her eyes searched his face now, not with hope, but with something close to understanding. Like she already knew he was struggling, even if he didn't know why. "I know you don't want to be here," she said quietly. That made him stiffen. "You don't know anything about me," he replied, his voice flat. She nodded slowly. "You're right," she said. "I don't, but I can see it." He frowned. People said many things when they were afraid. This wasn't fear. This was observation. That bothered him more than anger ever could. He turned away for a moment, pretending to examine the door, the walls, anything but her face. His mind told him to finish what he came to do and leave. Walk away and forget. That was the rule. That was always the rule. But his body didn't move. Memories he didn't invite began to surface. A different room years ago, a smaller one, a kitchen with cracked tiles and a humming refrigerator. His mother standing by the sink, her back turned, shoulders tired from working too much. The same look in her eyes when she thought no one was watching. Not fear, just exhaustion. He clenched his jaw and forced the memory away. "This isn't about me," he said, more to himself than to her. She gave a faint smile, barely there. "Nothing ever is until it is." The words echoed in his head. He didn't like how calm she was. It made the room feel heavier, like the air itself was waiting. "How old are you?" he asked suddenly. She looked surprised by the question. 28, she answered after a second. Too young, his mind whispered. He ignored it. "Do you have family?" he asked, hating himself for asking even as the words left his mouth. She hesitated this time. "Not really," she said. "Not anymore." That answer carried more weight than a long explanation. He knew what "not anymore" meant. Loss came in many forms, some slow, some sudden. He glanced at the clock again. Time was moving whether he wanted it to or not. "You should stop talking," he said. "It won't help." "I know," she replied. "I'm not trying to help myself." That stopped him again. "Then why?" he asked. She took a slow breath. "Because if this is the last time I speak, I want it to be honest. Honest." The word felt strange in this place. She looked down at her hands, then back up at him. "I made mistakes," she said. "Trusted the wrong people. Thought I could fix things on my own. I was wrong, but I'm not a bad person." He had heard that line before too, but usually it came with excuses, with anger, with denial. Her voice held none of that. "I know this doesn't change anything," she continued. "I just don't want you to think I deserved this." He swallowed. Deserved. Who decided that? He had never seen himself as the one who judged. He was just a step in a process set by others. Orders came from above. Names were handed down. Details were minimal. He followed instructions and moved on. That was how he avoided thinking about fairness or fate or blame. But now, standing there, he felt like the weight of the decision rested squarely on him. She watched him closely, as if reading every small movement. His clenched hands. The way his shoulders stiffened. The way he avoided her eyes now. "You can still do it," she said gently. "I won't fight, I promise." Something inside him cracked. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was small, like the sound of ice breaking far away. But once it started, he couldn't ignore it. He looked at her again. Really looked. Not as a task. Not as a problem to be solved. But as a person sitting alone in a broken room, facing the end with quiet courage. This was the moment before everything changed, whether he liked it or not. He realized that once he made his next move, there would be no going back. Whatever choice he made would follow him long after he left this room. The light flickered again, and for a brief second everything seemed to pause. The room, the air, even his thoughts. She waited. And for the first time in years, so did he. He remained standing where he was, feeling the quiet press against his chest. The room felt smaller now, as if the walls had moved closer without him noticing. He shifted his weight and cleared his throat, buying himself a few more seconds. Seconds mattered, even when he pretended they didn't. "You never answered me," he said finally. She tilted her head slightly. "About what?" "Your name." For a moment she looked unsure, as if deciding whether it was worth sharing. Then she spoke. "It's Lena." The name stayed in the air longer than it should have. Lena, simple, soft. It didn't match the situation, and that made it worse. Names did that. They made people real. He nodded once. "I'm not giving you mine." "I didn't ask," she said, not unkindly. That surprised him again. Most people tried to collect details like names could turn into protection. Lena seemed to know better. She wasn't trying to escape reality. She was facing it head-on, and that made him feel exposed in a way he hadn't expected. He walked a slow circle around the room, careful not to get too close to her. The floor creaked under his boots. Each sound felt loud in the silence. He stopped near a small window that had been covered long ago. Dust clung to the glass, blocking out whatever world existed outside. "How did you end up here?" he asked. Lena exhaled slowly. "I wondered when you'd ask that." "I don't usually," he said, "so don't read into it." She gave a small nod. "Fair enough." She took a moment, gathering her thoughts. He almost told her to hurry, but something stopped him. He waited. "I grew up thinking hard work solved everything," she began. "My father used to say that if you kept moving forward, life would eventually meet you halfway. I believed him. I worked. I trusted people who talked big and promised easy answers. I thought I was smart enough to see the danger." She gave a quiet laugh, not amused. "I was." He leaned against the wall, arms crossed. Her words didn't sound rehearsed. They weren't dramatic. They felt like something she had said to herself many times in her head. I helped someone when I shouldn't have, she continued. Did a favor, then another, small things at first. I didn't ask enough questions. I didn't want to look suspicious. By the time I realized I was in too deep, there was no easy way out. He nodded slightly. That part, at least, made sense to him. Trouble rarely announced itself clearly. It came disguised as opportunity, as kindness, as a chance to be useful. Did you try to leave? He asked. Yes, she said. That's when things got worse. He didn't push her for details. He didn't need them. He could fill in the blanks well enough. He had lived in those spaces himself, the spaces where choices slowly disappeared. Why didn't you run? He asked instead. She looked down at her tied hands. Because I was tired, she said honestly. And because I thought if I stayed, maybe I could fix what I broke. That answer stayed with him, fix what I broke. He had told himself the same thing once long ago, right before everything fell apart. You know, he said, his voice quieter now, sometimes there is no fixing. I know, she replied. I learned that too late. They fell silent again. The flickering light buzzed faintly overhead. He noticed that his breathing had slowed. The tension in his shoulders had eased without him realizing it. That worried him. Comfort had no place here. You don't seem angry, he said after a while. What would be the point? Lena asked. Anger doesn't change where I am. Most people are, he said, at least at the end. She met his eyes. Maybe they're angry because they still think something can be done. He didn't answer. He didn't know what to say to that. He walked closer this time, stopping a few steps away, close enough to see the small scar near her eyebrow, close enough to notice how steady her gaze was even now. You're not scared? He asked. I am, she said, but not in the way you think. Explain. I'm scared that my life will be reduced to this moment, she said softly. That nothing else I did will matter. That people will remember me only for my mistakes. Her words hit him harder than he expected. He had spent years trying to convince himself that memories didn't matter, that people forgot quickly. Yet here he was, carrying faces and moments he wished he could erase. What do you want to be remembered for? He asked before he could stop himself. She smiled just a little. I wanted to help people. I wasn't perfect at it, but I tried. I wanted a simple life, a small place, quiet mornings, maybe a dog. The image came to him uninvited. Lena walking down a street with a tired dog on a leash, sunlight on her face, no fear in her eyes. It felt too real, too close to something that could have existed. He stepped back abruptly. This isn't helping, he said. She didn't argue. I know. He checked his watch again. The numbers stared back at him, cold and exact. He was running out of excuses, out of reasons to delay. Do you blame me? He asked suddenly. Lena looked genuinely surprised. For what? For being here, he said. For what I'm supposed to do. She thought about it carefully. No, she said at last. I think you're part of a chain, and chains are made of many links, some stronger than others. He let out a slow breath. He didn't know whether that was forgiveness or something else entirely. You're different from the others, she added. Don't say that, he replied quickly. You don't know me. I know enough, she said. You're listening, that was true, and it scared him. Listening led to thinking. Thinking led to doubt. Doubt led to choices he had spent years avoiding. He turned away, rubbing his face with his hands. The room felt too bright now, too exposed. He wished for the old numbness to return, the one that made everything flat and distant. You should hate me, he said. Why? She asked. Because it's easier, he answered. For you, maybe, she said. Not for me. He laughed softly without humor. You're making this harder than it needs to be. I'm sorry, she said. That was never my intention. He looked at her again, really looked. She wasn't trying to manipulate him. There was no hidden plan, just honesty, raw and unprotected. Lena, he said, saying her name out loud for the first time. It felt strange on his tongue. If things had been different, she nodded. I know. That was all she said. She didn't ask him to finish the sentence. She didn't ask for promises he couldn't give. Another silence settled between them, but this one felt different, heavier, like a question waiting for an answer. He realized then that something had shifted inside him. He couldn't name it yet, but he felt it clearly. A slow, uncomfortable awareness that this moment mattered more than he wanted it to. Somewhere deep inside, a line he had never crossed before was starting to blur. And once a line blurred, it was never the same again. The room felt different now, though nothing had changed on the outside. The same weak light buzzed above them. The same cold walls stood silently around them. Yet inside him, something had shifted, like a door he had kept locked for years had opened just a little. He noticed it when his hand started to shake. It wasn't obvious at first, just a small tremble in his fingers. He tightened his grip, hoping it would stop. It didn't. His body was reacting before his mind could catch up. That bothered him more than anything Lena had said. He turned away from her again, walking toward the far wall. He pressed his palm against it, feeling the rough surface under his skin. It was real, solid. He needed that reminder. He needed to feel grounded. "You okay?" Lena asked quietly. He almost snapped at her, almost told her to stop talking, but the words didn't come out that way. "Fine," he said, "just thinking." She didn't respond right away. When she did, her voice was careful. "You think a lot for someone who says he doesn't." That made him pause. She wasn't wrong. He had built his entire life around not thinking, not questioning. Yet here he was doing exactly that. He turned back to face her. She was watching him closely now, not with fear, not with hope, but with attention, like someone listening to a story and waiting to see how it ended. Her eyes held something deeper than before, a quiet sadness mixed with understanding, and beneath that, a strange calm. That calm frightened him. "Why are you so calm?" he asked. She shrugged slightly. "Because fighting what I can't change only makes it hurt more." "That's easy to say," he replied. "I know," she said. "It took me a long time to learn it." He studied her face again. The tired lines near her eyes, the way she held herself, steady despite everything. He realized then that she wasn't pretending to be brave. This was real. She had already gone through her fear and come out the other side. He had seen that look only once before, years ago. He hadn't thought about that day in a long time. He didn't want to, but now it came rushing back without permission. He was younger then, not innocent but not completely broken either. He remembered standing in a hospital hallway, the smell of cleaning chemicals sharp in the air. His mother sat on a hard chair, hands folded in her lap, staring at the floor. The doctor had spoken quietly, carefully, like every word might shatter her. She hadn't cried. Not then. Not right away. She had looked up at him with the same calm he now saw in Lena's eyes, the same tired acceptance, as if she had already said goodbye in her heart. That memory hit him hard. He inhaled sharply and pushed it down, but it stayed. Once memories returned, they never came alone. They brought others with them. He remembered himself at 17, standing at a crossroads he didn't understand yet, choosing the fast way because it seemed easier, because it promised control, power, safety. He told himself he was doing what he had to do. Now he wondered when "had to" turned into "got used to." "Are you thinking about someone?" Lena asked softly. He looked at her, surprised. "Why would you think that?" "Because your face changed," she said. "Like you went somewhere else." He didn't answer. He didn't trust himself to. She shifted slightly in the chair. "For what it's worth," she said, "I don't think you're a bad person." He laughed, short and sharp. "You shouldn't say things like that." "Why?" "Because you don't know what I've done." She met his gaze without hesitation. "I know what you're about to do," she said, "and I know you're struggling with it. That tells me enough." Her words landed heavy in his chest. Struggling. He had never allowed himself to struggle before. He either acted or didn't. There was no space for doubt, no space for feeling until now. He noticed his heartbeat, too fast, too loud. It felt like the room was listening. "You think this changes anything?" he asked. Me hesitating? "No," she said honestly. "I think it changes you. That scared him more than anything else she had said. Change meant uncertainty. Change meant consequences he couldn't predict. He had survived by keeping everything controlled, measured. A man like him couldn't afford change, and yet here it was. He took a slow step toward her, then another. He stopped just out of reach, close enough to see the reflection of the light in her eyes. "You know," he said quietly, "I used to believe people were either strong or weak." "That was it, and now?" she asked. "Now I think most people are just tired," he said. A soft sadness crossed her face. "Yes," she agreed, "very tired." They shared a silence that felt heavy but honest. No pretending, no roles, just two people in a broken moment. He looked down at her hands again, tied but relaxed. She wasn't pulling against the rope. She wasn't testing it. She had accepted it, and that acceptance broke something inside him. "Don't," he said suddenly. She looked confused. "Don't what?" "Don't give up," he said, the words surprising even him. She studied his face carefully, searching for meaning. "I'm not giving up," she said. "I just stopped fighting what I can't control." "There's a difference," he replied, "and I don't like which one this is." She didn't argue, she simply watched him, waiting. He turned away again, pacing now. Each step felt heavier than the last. His thoughts tangled together, pulling him in opposite directions. Finish it. Walk away. Forget. That was one voice. The other voice was quieter, newer. But it wouldn't go away. It asked questions he didn't want to answer. What if this was the moment that defined him? What if walking away from this choice was easier than living with it? He stopped pacing and pressed his hands together, fingers interlocked. He realized then that he was afraid, not of consequences, not of being caught, but of what he would see in himself if he went through with it. "Lena," he said again. "Yes." "If you walk out of here," he began, then stopped. She waited, patient. He shook his head. "Forget it." "No," she said gently. "Say it." He took a breath. "If you walk out of here, your life won't be easy." She smiled faintly. "It already hasn't been." "You'll have to disappear," he continued. "You'll have to leave things behind." "I know," she said. "You can't come back looking for answers," he added, "or justice." "I wasn't planning to," she replied. Her calm response made his chest tighten again. "Why are you so sure?" he asked. "Because sometimes survival is the only kind of freedom you get," she said. That sentence stayed with him. Survival as freedom. He looked at her and realized she wasn't asking him for anything anymore. Not mercy, not sympathy, not even a chance. She was simply there, letting him face himself. And that was the hardest thing anyone had ever asked of him. The light flickered once more, then steadied. The buzzing stopped. The room fell into a deep, quiet stillness. He stood there, caught between the man he had been and the man he might become. This was the moment where excuses stopped working. This was the moment where hesitation turned into choice. And he knew, deep down, that whatever he decided next would follow him for the rest of his life. He stood still for a long moment, feeling the weight of everything pressing down on him. The room was silent except for his breathing. Each breath felt loud, like it was echoing inside his head. He looked at Lena, then away, then back again. His mind searched for a reason to move, any reason at all. Slowly, he reached into his pocket. Lena noticed the movement. Her shoulders tensed just a little, not in fear, but in readiness. She had already accepted every possible ending. That acceptance made his chest feel tight. He pulled out a small knife. Not the kind meant to hurt, just a simple tool. He held it up for a moment, then looked at her. "I'm going to cut the rope," he said quietly. For the first time since he met her, her calm broke. Her eyes widened slightly, not with excitement but disbelief. "You don't have to," she said carefully. "You don't owe me anything." "I know," he replied. "This isn't about owing." He stepped closer and knelt in front of her. His hands were steady now, steadier than they had been all night. He carefully slid the blade under the rope and cut through it slowly, making sure not to hurt her. The rope fell to the floor with a soft sound. Lena rubbed her wrists, flexing her fingers. She didn't rush. She didn't jump up. She stayed seated, watching him closely as if afraid this moment might disappear if she moved too fast. "It's done," he said. "You're free." She swallowed. "Why?" she asked. He thought about that question. Many answers came to mind, but none felt complete. "Because I couldn't do it," he said finally. "And because if I did, I wouldn't recognize myself anymore." She nodded slowly, accepting that answer without pushing for more. He stood up and took a step back, creating distance again. "Listen to me carefully," he said. "What happens next matters." "I'm listening," she replied. "You're going to leave this place," he said. "There's a door at the end of the hall. It leads to a back street. No cameras, no lights. Walk fast, but don't run." She stood up slowly, her legs unsteady at first. She caught herself on the chair, then straightened. "Once you're out," he continued, "you don't look back. You don't ask questions. You don't talk about this to anyone, not friends, not strangers, not even yourself if you can help it." She nodded. "I understand. You need to disappear," he said. "Change where you go, change who you talk to, start over." "I can do that," she said. He studied her face. "It won't be easy." She gave a small, tired smile. "Nothing ever is." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. He handed it to her. "What's this?" she asked. "An address," he said, "and a name, someone who owes me a favor. They won't ask questions. They'll help you get settled somewhere else." Her hands trembled slightly as she took the paper. "Why are you helping me this much?" He hesitated. "Because if I don't, I might change my mind." She understood immediately. She folded the paper and tucked it safely into her pocket. "I won't forget this," she said. He shook his head. "You should." She looked at him, really looked at him. "I don't think I can." "Then don't let it stop you," he said. "Remember it, but keep moving." They stood there for a moment, neither knowing how to end this strange exchange. It felt too important to rush, yet too dangerous to stretch out. "Will you be okay?" she asked quietly. The question surprised him. "That's not something you need to worry about," he said. "I know," she replied, "but I asked anyway." He didn't answer. He wasn't sure what okay meant anymore. She took a step toward the door, then stopped. "You gave me a second chance," she said. "I won't waste it." He nodded once. "Good." She turned and walked toward the door. Each step felt heavy to him, like something was being pulled out of his chest with every movement she made. When she reached the door, she paused and looked back. "For what it's worth," she said, "I hope you find your way out too." Before he could respond, she opened the door and slipped into the hallway. The door closed softly behind her. The room felt empty instantly. He stood there alone, staring at the closed door. His heart was pounding now, fast and sharp. The calm he felt earlier was gone, replaced by something more dangerous. Fear. Not fear of being discovered. Fear of consequences he couldn't see yet. He walked to the window and pressed his forehead against the glass. Outside, the city moved on like nothing had happened. Cars passed. Lights flickered. People lived their lives without knowing how close something had come to ending. He checked his watch again. Too much time had passed. He straightened up and wiped his face with his hands. There was no time to linger. He erased any sign that Lena had been there, straightened the chair, gathered the rope, wiped down surfaces. He moved with practiced efficiency, but his mind was elsewhere. Every sound made him tense. Every shadow felt like a threat. When he finished, he stood in the center of the room one last time. It looked exactly as it had when he arrived. Empty, silent, ordinary, but he knew better. He left the room and locked the door behind him. The hallway felt longer than before. His footsteps echoed as he walked, each step reminding him that there was no turning back now. Outside, the night air hit his face. He took a deep breath, filling his lungs. It felt different, sharper, more real. He blended into the street, just another figure moving through the city. But inside, everything had changed. Somewhere far away, Lena was walking toward a new life with nothing but a piece of paper and a fragile hope. And here, in the middle of the city, he carried the quiet weight of a choice no one would ever know about. He didn't feel like a hero. He didn't feel like a villain. He just felt human. And that more than anything scared him. The city looked the same the next morning, but to him, everything felt different. The streets were busy, filled with people rushing to places that mattered only to them. Cars moved in long lines. Shops opened their doors. Life continued without pause. No one knew what had happened in that quiet room the night before. No one noticed the weight he carried as he walked among them. He stopped at a small cafe and stood outside for a moment, watching people through the glass. A woman laughed at something on her phone. A man stirred his drink absent-mindedly. Ordinary moments, simple and untouched. He realized how far away he had lived from this kind of normal life. He didn't go inside. Instead, he kept walking. His phone buzzed once in his pocket. His body tensed immediately. He checked the screen. A short message. Nothing unusual, no questions, no alarms. He let out a slow breath he didn't know he had been holding. For years he had lived ready for trouble, ready to run, ready to react. That readiness didn't disappear just because he made one different choice. If anything, it felt sharper now. He returned to his small apartment later that day. It was clean, empty, and quiet. The kind of place that showed no trace of the person living there. He dropped his keys on the table and sat down on the edge of the bed. That was when the thoughts returned. Not loudly, not all at once. They came slowly like waves that didn't stop. Lena's voice, her eyes, the way she walked out without looking back. He replayed the moment again and again, wondering if he had missed something, if he had made a mistake. He had expected relief. What he felt instead was responsibility. He wondered where she was now, if she had found the address useful, if she was safe, if she was scared. He reminded himself that these questions were dangerous. Caring created ties. Ties could be used against you. Still, he couldn't stop thinking. That night, sleep didn't come easily. When it did, it was shallow and broken. He woke up more than once, his heart racing for no clear reason. Each time he lay there staring at the ceiling, listening to the city breathe outside his window. Days passed. He went back to his routine, or at least tried to. He met the same people, answered the same calls, spoke the same careful words. On the outside, nothing had changed. Inside, everything had. He noticed small things now. The tired look in a stranger's eyes, the hesitation in someone's voice. The way people carried invisible weight with them. He had ignored those things before. Now they stood out everywhere. One afternoon he passed a park and slowed his steps. A child was chasing pigeons, laughing freely. A man sat on a bench reading. A woman walked her dog, the leash loose in her hand. Simple scenes, peaceful. He stood there longer than he meant to. For the first time in years, he wondered what his life could have been if he had made different choices earlier. Not grand choices, just small ones, the kind that slowly shape a person without them noticing. The thought didn't bring regret exactly. It brought clarity. He understood now that the choice he made with Lena hadn't changed the world. It hadn't fixed anything big, but it had changed something small and important inside him. He could no longer pretend he didn't have a choice. That realization followed him everywhere. A week later, he received another message. This one made his hands go cold. It was brief, careful. It said only that the favor had been settled and the person had moved on. No names, no details. He read it twice, then deleted it. He sat back and closed his eyes. A quiet sense of relief washed over him. Lena had made it out. She was gone, truly gone. He hoped she would stay that way. As for him, things became more complicated. He began turning down certain requests, not all at once, not in a way that drew attention. Just enough to create space. People noticed, but no one asked questions. In his world, questions were rare and dangerous. With every refusal, his life felt slightly more unstable, but also more honest. One evening, he sat alone in his apartment, holding a glass of water, staring out the window. The city lights blurred together. He thought about the man he had been when he first started down this path, the excuses he told himself, the promises he made to survive just a little longer. Survival had been his only goal. Now he wondered if that was enough. He didn't fool himself into thinking he could simply walk away. Lives like his didn't end cleanly. There were always consequences, loose ends, shadows that followed. But he also knew that continuing as he was would slowly erase whatever part of him still felt human. That part had spoken up in that room, and it refused to be silent again. Somewhere else far from the city, Lena stood in a small rented room with a single window. The place was modest. The furniture didn't match. The walls were bare, but it was hers for now. She sat on the bed holding a cup of tea, letting the warmth calm her hands. The first days had been the hardest. New streets, new faces, new rules. She had learned to keep her head down and her questions to herself. At night, she thought about the room she had left behind. About the man who stood in the doorway, torn between who he was and who he could be. She didn't know his name, but she carried his choice with her. It reminded her that even in the darkest moments, something unexpected could happen. She started small, a temporary job, a routine. Morning walks, quiet evenings. She didn't talk about her past. She focused on the present, one day at a time. Freedom felt fragile but real. Back in the city, he continued to move carefully. He kept his distance. He listened more than he spoke. He watched for signs of trouble but also for chances to step away. Some nights he still felt the pull of his old life, the familiarity, the ease of not caring. But now when those thoughts came, they were followed by Lena's eyes. Calm, tired, honest. They reminded him of the cost. Months passed. Nothing dramatic happened. No sudden endings. No clean escapes. Just slow change, the kind that required patience and courage. He made adjustments, quiet ones, risky ones. He knew he was being watched. He always had been. But he also knew that as long as he moved carefully, he could keep creating distance. One evening, as he walked home, he passed the same park again. The seasons had changed. Leaves covered the ground. The air was cool. He stopped at the edge of the path and looked around. People still lived their lives, still laughed, still worried about small things that felt big to them. For the first time in a long while, he felt something close to peace. Not happiness, not forgiveness, just peace. He understood that redemption wasn't a single act. It was a series of choices made quietly, often without recognition. He had taken one step. Many more remained. He didn't know where his path would lead. He didn't expect an easy ending, but he knew this. The moment he paused in that room had changed him forever. And sometimes, the most powerful moments in life were the ones no one else ever saw. Somewhere, Lena looked out her window at a new sunrise, breathing in a future she wasn't sure she deserved but was determined to protect. And somewhere else, a man walked through a familiar city with unfamiliar hope, carrying the memory of a choice that proved even the smallest pause could change everything.